Welcome to Coblo's the show called The Wilson. This is my second broadcast, and I wanted to thank everybody for showing up today. This show is mainly based on trying to get information out to the community that we should actually be more concerned with. A lot of the things and many things that we aren't really participating in or really talking about that we should talk about. And it's just not in one community that this is happening. This is in a lot of communities with our people. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to bring forth some attention about the political season. Right now, everybody is really in a run right now to get elected or re-elected or challenged. And so I wanted to bring different perspectives from women of color that are involved in politics and talk about some of the things that they encounter, some of the I'm gonna say the obstacles and just everyday things that they have to go through, realizing the position that they're in. And then I have Mr. Timothy Ragland below. He's recently, I think it's been not quite a year, right at a year, he was elected mayor of Talladega, Alabama. Everybody knows about Talladega. That's what the Talladega 500 is. And maybe we'll have a few more people call in that's involved in politics, but I mainly want to give us some exposure and bring some light to things that we should talk about, things that you know about that the general public in our community is not aware of. So first I want to say welcome to Vanjie Williams. She's from Virginia. I want to say thank you to Miss Patsy Austin Gatson. She's actually she's in a runoff today.
No, not a runoff.
Oh, no runoff?
No, I won the primary by 59.4, 40% of the vote.
All right.
No runoff.
Another success.
Thank you.
District Attorney. And then, like I said once before, we have Mr. Timothy Ragland, Mayor Timothy Ragland of Talladega, Alabama, home of the Talladega 500. And further on, I'd like to talk to Virginia. Virginia, she's run for Congress. I'd like to get a little insight on what drove you to run for Congress, and what are some of the things that you have to go through that you think we might need to know more about?
So I ran twice. I ran in 2018. I ran in 2020. Something that most people don't realize is that we as Black women, we are often the last to get a dollar in fundraising. We're often the last to get the publicity, because most people don't understand that a Black woman comes at a different perspective. We come from a perspective of conservatism. Although we're Democrats 99% of the time, we are very conservative. We don't believe in what most people say. I am pro-choice, but I don't believe in abortion.
Right.
Understand, that's two different things, but it's not my choice or anybody else's choice to make that decision. But as a Black woman, comments that I heard were, and Patsy, tell me if I'm wrong. So you're pro-choice. So don't most Black women get abortions and they just want to abuse them for birth control? No, it's not us out here getting abortions at great numbers. Hate to tell you that. It's just not us. A, we don't have the capital to do it. B, we don't have the facilities to do it. And C, most times we're a little bit too proud to go in there and make that choice. Right. We'd rather keep the baby and fight through it and do the right thing and raise that child. We as Black women come from a perspective, we've run. I ran. I have 6 daughters. If I have a representative who doesn't see me as a person, but only as a color or as a Democrat, but not as a constituent of his town, it was time for me to step up and run. So in 2018, I ran, and I came the closest to beating him or any Republican in our district since 76. I lost by 10 points, and I did that with less than $500,000. Every other congressional candidate in the state of Virginia had $2, $3, $4, $5, $18 million. I ran that race because people understood I ran for heart and for truth, for justice, and it was for them.
Right.
So, you know, it was a tough run. And then in 18, we ran again. Sorry, 2020, we ran again. But COVID-19, I would have to say COVID-19 changed the dynamics of running a good grassroots door knocking campaign, because staying alive was more important. Having a daughter who has a special need, she has a condition called aspergillosis. COVID-19 would kill her. So in March, I locked down. And yes, people ask me, you didn't go to the Black Lives pro-choice, life, pro-life, what do you call it? Black Lives Matter marches. I'm Black. I don't have to prove I'm Black by going to the marches, but what I can do is work behind the scenes to get laws changed by the representatives I knew. And that is the difference between us and them. I didn't go to a Black Lives Matter protest to make a statement. I stayed home and did the right thing. So running for office, that's what it's about. And yeah, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, I heard that. We need that. We need that. You got to keep fighting, keep pushing forward.
Got to.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, I had a conversation earlier, and I say this quite often. It's really a hard place in the political atmosphere for a conservative Black person, because we have to choose between the lesser of two evils. A lot of stuff I don't agree with the Democratic Party either. But at the same time, if I go with the Republican Party, I'm siding with white nationalists. It's like we're in between a rock and a hard place. What is it like for you guys being, because I'm pretty sure for you to be a politician and being a Black person, you got to be somewhat conservative. You can't be, you know, you can be liberal, but, you know, in our shoes, our liberal is not the same as everybody else's liberal, I don't think.
Perfectly
so
said.
How is that for y'all?
Patsy, you agree with me? That is perfectly said. I am a moderate. I am an independent by nature.
Yes.
Yet I was told I wasn't progressive enough because I wouldn't say Medicare for all. Guess what? I believe that everyone in the country deserves Medicare, but I also have a plan to make it happen. But I don't like the term Medicare for all. And nor do most of the people in my district. Or
Did we lose Vanjie?
I as a moderate Black person had to explain to several persons on the other simple. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to work for all of us. And when we go to Capitol Hill, we have a seat at the table. Their thing was, well, no, we progressives, we want to do it this way. You don't represent me. You think you know what we need in our community. You think you know what a Black person needs in our community, where I do. I'm in the community.
Right.
And they don't understand that. Just like the young man who won the primary, he won by 2,000 votes. Black people did not go for Bernie Sanders in this district. Black people are not really happy with AOC in our district. And now he's running on that platform in this district. And my fear is, while I think he's a great young man, I fear that if he doesn't start pointing his way to more central, so we get those moderate conservatives to come our way on the Democratic side, the incumbent will win. I actually talked to his team earlier this week, and I told.
Oh, she broke up. We're gonna keep it moving. Patsy.
Yes.
What influenced you to want to become a district attorney in Gwinnett County?
Well, Gwinnett County right now is one of the most diverse counties in the Southeast, and we have everybody here. And the demographics have changed just so phenomenally that I feel it was time. It was time for someone to step up. The incumbent I'm going against, he's a Republican. He's been in the office for 27 years with no opposition. So it's just time. It's time for change. And I jumped in the race after much prayer and thought and conversations with my family about do we want to do a campaign trail now since May of 2019. So it's getting ready to wrap up. So I'm just happy about it. The primary was just wonderful in the sense that all 156 precincts in our county came my way. And I also bested the incumbent. He had no opposition in his race as a Republican, but I still got like 2,000 more votes than he did. So we're ready to do it. I think we're ready.
I heard the universe seems like it's been working in a different direction here lately.
Yeah.
Mr. Tim, you're a mayor of Talladega, Alabama. I don't know if you were the first black mayor. I assume you were, but being that we're neighbors, I'm in the neighboring city of you of Anniston, and we've had a majority black city for I don't know how long. It's been a long time that Anniston has been a majority black city, but our community didn't actually find, I'm gonna say, the audacity or just to even see with a vision that we could elect a black mayor, or that, you know, we had a few people run before then, but in the city, in the community, you didn't really hear too many citizens talk about that. How was it in Talladega getting the community motivated to come out and get you elected? Because I know that had to be a pretty solid job you had to do to get elected in Talladega.
You know, it was definitely a community effort. I won by 23 votes in a runoff against an incumbent.
Wow.
You know, it took a lot of, it was, like I said, it was a community effort. It took a lot of help from Talladega College, which was a historically black college in our city. You know, I had not only support from black people, I had support from white people, from every demographic across our city. You know, and the thing I think that made the difference was messaging. It was interesting that Patsy, that you said it's time for change. That was actually my platform, Time for Change.
It is.
And time was an acronym for technology, infrastructure, money, which is better job opportunities, and education. And so when you speak to people about the real issues that are going on, and you talk about things that are relevant to people's lives, I think it's galvanizing, and it helps to obviously make history.
Right. Well, tell me this. What does it take? How much willpower does it take to actually take that step forward to put yourself on the line like that? Because I mean, you know, a lot of people complain, many citizens complain, but they don't really make the effort to cause any change, to make a contribution to change. So what really, you know, pushed you first off to make that decision to say, you know what, man, I'm gonna put it on my back. I'm gonna put the weight of Talladega on my shoulders, and we're gonna go and do this on both sides of the tracks.
Yeah. You know, I toyed with the idea in 2015, and I kind of psyched myself out and talked myself out of it. 4 years later in 2019, it was time to decide if I was going to run. And as I drove around the city, I saw the same buildings that were dilapidated and were in squalor in 2015 were the same way in 2019. The same potholes that were there in 2015 were there in 2019. People weren't proud to be from Talladega. Every time you saw Talladega on the news, it was for something negative. And I wanted to be the person that not just complained about it. I wanted to do something to help. So that's really why I ran. I wanted to help people.
Great. Ms. Gasson, future District Attorney Gasson, how's the voter turnout with the people in our community in Gwinnett County? I mean, is participation good amongst the black community and the brown community in Gwinnett County?
Well, it's awesome because initially for the primary race, the Secretary of State sent out 6.4 million requests for absentee ballots. Because with COVID being a problem, that was a great move that was made to send out the request, you know, so you can ask for absentee ballots to every voter in Georgia. And I think that really pushed the participation of the voters in Gwinnett County. And that's why someone we know does not want voting by mail. So it's really going to push people to know I have no excuse. I don't have to go wait in a line, you know, for 5 hours. I can vote by mail, by ballot. And I think that has really pushed the numbers way up. When Stacey Abrams ran for governor, she took Gwinnett County. and she took Gwinnett County with, I think it was 31,000 votes. When I took this race for the Democratic primary, I won by like 61,000 plus votes. So that just shows you people are really woke. They're listening. They're looking at who they want to put in office. And one thing, you know, I did interact with some of the young people doing the marches out here, and they want change and they want it now. They want justice. They want it now. And it's time for it to happen. And any other excuse will not carry the day. There are no more excuses, because I have 2 grandchildren in this county, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I don't want to see them having to deal with systemic racism, you know, in their lives. This is time for us to step up, you know, like John Lewis would say, get in some good trouble.
Right.
You know, we need to make it happen. And if people that aren't ready, I'm so sorry, you're going to be left behind. But we need to be on the right side of history at this point and get the job done all the way down the ticket.
And the other thing I noticed about this younger generation too, they're not standing for anything that doesn't have any logic. They're not listening to just, that's the way it's always been.
Yes.
That ain't flying no more, because we've been putting up with the same stuff for too long. Like Mr. Ragland said, you see potholes year after year after year, and dilapidation year after year after year. But then you got another side of town that look like it came from another country, just progress all over the place. So they're not tolerating that. You know, it's they're waking up from being submissive, I guess you're gonna call it. But
yes.
How was the turnout for you up in Virginia, Ms. Williams?
So it was pretty good this year, but we had a little bit of voter issues going on. So Virginia mailed out 131,000 absentee mail-in ballots. Only around 62,000 came back. So there's a big question as to what happened. You have to request these ballots. Not many people who are going to request these ballots not mail them back in. So you know, I'm the type of person, and I know I have family watching from Atlanta, and I know they're going to love when I say this. See, I firmly believe that God worked in mysterious ways this election. I went out for one reason on election day. Northumberland County in Virginia received no Democratic ballots on election.
Wow.
Oh, that will go again.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Not one ballot. Not one ballot. They didn't get their ballots until around 1 o'clock that afternoon. So I drove from my house 2 hours south into the rural area instead of going north into the populated area, because my point was everybody deserved to have their vote.
Right.
But I'll tell you, while we did have a pretty good turnout for COVID-19, this is something I want people to remember. It's not just about the vote. It's about helping your candidates get that vote.
Ooh, yes.
Getting out there, making phone calls, having a Zoom fundraiser, spreading their literature around places. You know, even if you're going to the grocery store and you know y'all go, take some ballots, some of those flyers, and put them on the cars in the parking lot as you're going in the store. Because there is somebody who knows that there's an election right now. There's always somebody. If Virginia has an election every year. And so Patsy and I were talking before we came on. So let's do some math here. 1619, slave Angela came to the shores of the United States. That was 401 years ago. Here we are in 2020. And until Black people take the equity and the equality that they deserve by getting out there, running for office, joining committees, whether it's the NAACP, the church committee, school board, join a committee and becoming active. Our votes will keep diminishing. You gotta get out there. You gotta take and you gotta vote every election, no matter how small or big it is, because all politics start local, and when they get to Capitol Hill, that's where the money's going to come from.
Right. So, right. And we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent too. I got the mayor from my hometown of Hobson City, Alabama. I'm gonna introduce her. She's from the second incorporated black city in the United States, the first incorporated black city in Alabama. So I call it the map of the historic Hobson City. I'm proud. And so Tim knows about Hobson City. So I want to introduce her and give her a chance to speak, you know, because she's, well, the city that we're from, that progress and that awakeness of voting participation hasn't really struck our communities yet. And you know, that's the way a lot of society works. Trends, a lot of times trends will start off in big cities, big communities, and it takes a few years before it trickles down to the rural areas. And so now, to a certain extent, you have a movement going along and coming along a little bit in our community, but it's very slow, you know what I'm saying? So I'm really thrilled to have her on here too, because she's coming from a perspective of actually trying to uplift the city, motivate the community, and make sure that it survives throughout history, because we have a heritage and a legacy that we're trying our best to preserve, you know, and a lot of people in the United States won't pay attention to it, but we should, because these small towns are very important too. So there you go, Miss Alberta McCrory. I'm introducing you. You go ahead and take it from here.
Okay, Rico, and I want to thank you all so much for having me on your show today. Took a little time for me to get to you, but nevertheless, we're there. And I was just listening to the young lady, you know, talking about those years since slavery and the 400-year span that has taken place. But where we are right now in this community, I was just sharing with a young lady earlier that her father, who was on our council, on our city council, opted not to run again because one of his daughters, who's maybe in her 60s, told him, who's 82, that you are too old, you need to get out of the way and let the young people take over. And I said, you know, Dr. C.T. Vivian was about to celebrate his 96th birthday.
Yes.
And I didn't hear anybody saying you need to get out of the way and let the young people take over. They didn't say it about John Lewis because they know the commitment that those men made to our struggle here in America. And one of the things that I was thinking about when you're talking about voting, sister, when I was in high school, my father nor my mother could vote. There were a few people in our city who did vote. And I'm happy to say, and Rico's father remembers that I was in the Selma Montgomery March. And he said he remembers that because he remembered the old people saying, Alberta went. And I went, sister, because I went to Sunday school on Sunday and went to church. And my pastor was a Morehouse graduate and had graduated from ITC. And he was very active with Dr. King and Andy Young and Julian Bond and John Lewis. And I tell people one day I answered the phone at his house and it was Andy Young. Then the next call was telling Martin call Martin King. And then somebody else called and I said, I thought I had died and gone to civil rights heaven to have all of those, to be there in the house at the parsonage, at the church. And all those men were calling because they were having a strategy meeting, either in Birmingham or at Pasca's in Atlanta. And they were wanting to make sure that our pastor was there. So I got involved at an early age. And I remember asking my father if he was a registered voter. And he said no. And he had gone and to register, but had been denied the right to register. And he had joined with some other men who were members of the Masonic Lodge, and they would have these little sessions where they were trying to prepare them. But there was nothing to prepare them for answering how many bubbles are in a bar of soap and all of these crazy questions that they had to answer. And even, you know, we learned that our college professors, men who were just very, you know, knowledgeable about the Constitution and history and all this stuff, they couldn't pass the exam. And so when I see our young people now, some of them, you know, just relax and saying it doesn't matter. And then those young people who are talking about taking over when they have not prepared themselves to take over anything. Right. That bothers me. when you never come to a city council meeting,
That's
you
right.
don't come to the things when we are trying to pull the community together to do those collaborative things, to build community, to connect with people, because it's those connections with people that are going to make the difference. You've got to have, and that's what we had when I was growing up. You know, I grew up doing the mass meeting nights. You know, on Sunday nights, we went to the mass meetings and got encouraged to maybe go the next week to integrate a lunch counter or the movie theater. And when you think about and you look at the history of men like Dr. King and John Lewis, Dr. Vivian, if you know that story about how they all came together, and the other gentleman that was teaching the nonviolent social action stuff, they were prepared and they got better prepared for what they went out and done. And some of our people are not getting prepared, and it's not all of them, and some of them are, but they don't need to leave those of us who are at least 70 years old. They don't need to tell us
Right.
that we need to get out of the way. We need to get in the way, and we need
Well,
to stay in the way, and we need to do this thing together.
yeah,
I need younger people, they need us, and together we can make this thing, we can share those stories, uh, and encourage each other and let them know that we're in this thing together,
yeah,
and we've got to fight this good fight together. You know, when we're talking about women and women running for office and women supporting each other, and we've got to do that again, just like the women did back in the 1900s and 1800s, first century, all that stuff. This is nothing new for us.
No.
This is nothing new when it comes to us getting together and supporting each other through our church, through the NAACP and other organizations that have been there and been our backbone. We don't need to throw those organizations. We don't need to throw the church, black church, out with the water, the dishwater. And we need to realize where we've come from and appreciate that struggle and be committed to continuing that struggle. And in order to do that, we've got to have that spiritual connection, and we've got to have that moral connection, and we've got to have a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood that we can carry on. We all need each other, and it's not going to be just any one group of people or one. I mean, this thing is how things are happening now, just all over the country, and we just got to not just get in where you fit in, but know where you fit in and get in and help make a difference.
And see, this is something that I noticed here lately. I don't know if everybody has been experiencing this same thing, but in our community, I've been hearing more lately the past few decades how much a waste of time it is to vote. Is that something that's been commonly been going on in Gwinnett County and Virginia and Talladega? Have y'all been hearing that a lot? Because I'm arguing with people all the time. I'm in the barbershop and I'm outnumbered sometimes, like 1 to 9, 1 to 10. I'm for voting and they calling me everything but the son of a black man for saying that we should vote. You know, is that a big issue that y'all all are noticing besides myself, or is it just me noticing that?
You know, leading up to my election, that was something that I heard a lot. But since the election, like I said, we won by 23 votes. You know, people can't really make that argument anymore with me because it literally came down to every single person that came out to vote. And so I think that's something that, you know, that's a story that we should share.
Did somebody else say something?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so in 2018, which was a midterm election, we pulled out double. We thought our win number was going to be around 110,000. We pulled out 154,000 votes average. And I'm going to tell you what made the difference. And this is sad. I had to put my face on the signs to let people know that a Black person was running. They had never seen a Black woman run. They had never seen a Black woman who had been in leadership positions that had taken charge. Once they found out that I wasn't just a Black candidate, that, I had a background, myself and a team of people started the TSA. I work for NASA. Yeah, I'm a classic nerd.
Right.
I am the biggest nerd.
Oh, we got a connection problem again.
Is that people got up and they went out in the rain and voted. Now, 2020, people are afraid to leave their front door.
Mhm.
And we're going to have that same problem coming up. I'm telling people to do this. Vote. Get out there and vote that ticket, because we don't need to be silent right now.
I agree with what Vanjie's saying 100%. People have to understand that every vote does count. And I try to impress that upon people, just letting them know that I am running, that I need their support. I ask for that vote everywhere I go. I ask for it because I can't do this alone. It's important that we do vote. I remember when our president was running, and my son asked me, he couldn't believe that with everything that was being said, that this person could end up becoming the president. And he's like, Mama, do you think he's going to become president? I said, if you don't get out there and vote, he will.
Absolutely.
And needless to say, he didn't vote that year. And he saw what happened, and I think that happened to a lot of us, because a lot of us may not have wanted, the other choice in, but at the same time, if you don't, your vote is your voice. If you want to be silent, stay home and don't vote. But we can't afford that. We cannot afford it. Too much is at stake.
And you're absolutely right. And one of the things I tell people, you vote when you don't vote.
Oh, that's true.
You vote when you don't vote.
That's right.
So at least take that time and go to the poll and let your voice be heard.
That's
We
right.
can't just sit back and say, it's not going to count. It's going to count one way or the other. So at least let it be said that you mattered and that you made a conscious decision to not stay at home on election day, but to get out. I don't care how cold it gets. If it's too hot, too cold, too whatever, get up and get to the poll.
That's right. That's right. I mean, would you say that we got comfortable, got complacent? The reason why we started slipping at the polls, because I've been pretty big on observing history, knowing what my people did before me and how we got to where we are. And I saw seems to me like a different atmosphere. Now, being that I wasn't there at that point in time, I could easily just be seeing the best pictures of everything and not realizing that there was a whole lot more lazy people not out there marching during the civil rights era. But I still feel deep down inside, I feel like that there had to be some kind of comfort or relaxation that happened with us, because I heard recently a group of females tell a councilman that once they elected him, it was his place to just do his job. They didn't need to reach out to him anymore. And I was like, well, I see now that they really don't understand that once you get your person in that you want in, you still have to participate. You still have to be adamant and let them know what you want going on. And I just, I'm wondering, is it just me, or are we comfortable? What caused that comfort? Did integration trick us and make us feel like that we didn't have to keep fighting and paying attention to what was going on? Because we've been going backwards for a certain length of time here lately.
Let me say this, Rico. I don't know at what point we started going backwards. I don't think there's any one particular thing that, for me, that we can point at and say that, because we didn't do this or because we did this. Because when we look at, from the civil rights era and all of the gains that we made during that time, and when we woke up one day, all of those gains were gone. And so I don't know if we got caught up in trying to still realize that American dream, in spite of, getting an education and still having white people, men and women, make 3 or 4 times more than you. That gap between black and white wealth. And here we are still struggling, trying to reach up and pull up, and at the same time, all being pressed down and pushed back. And so the things that have happened in recent months are with the Floyd case, and with all of the talk about race and racism. We've been talking about systemic racism for a very long time.
Right.
In the circles that I move around in, but on a large global scale, those terms are not talked about. We talk about health and educational disparities and economic disparities and all those things, but when we come down to small communities, those are not the conversations that people are having. So people are caught up with just trying to survive. When I tell you, Rico, that I can stand on my front porch and look down this long street, which is about equivalent to, and I'm in rural Alabama, about 3 city blocks. And when I was growing up, there was a mother and father in every house. When I grew up, the people in the community were members of the churches that were in the community. The children went to school in the community. And when I look down the street now, I don't see fathers. I don't see 5 or 6 children playing in the yard. Now we've got 2.5 kids, and I don't know how they get that 1/2 kid in there. But so much has changed, and so I don't know where we got off, but race plays a big part in that. It plays a big part in that, and so we can't get so excited about, well, we got the first black this, or we got the first black that, and we're losing ground. And so I think now where we are is that we've got to reach back and try to move forward,
Right.
and regain some of what we have lost, and to tell our children those stories so that they won't become so complacent and relaxed as we did, and look up one day and that barn that and all the cows, that farm that you wanted to own, all the cows are out of the pasture now, and you got to start all over, so to speak. So because when I was growing up, maybe I heard of 1 or 2 young men going to reform school, or we would call it formatory. You look around in the whole doggone neighborhood incarcerated.
Yep.
And then when they do release you to come back, they don't give the community or the family anything to help you try to get yourself reestablished. And if you came out of the projects, you can't go back into the projects. And I don't, it's just so much. And I'm just glad that people like us who are still have our eyes open, even though sometimes it feels like we're fighting a losing battle, but we're not.
We're not.
And when I heard the sister say, you have history behind you, I was looking at some of the candidates for offices in the adjoining cities, and everybody either has a BS degree or this degree, or they worked here, they worked there. I have a problem with some Black folk who think that they can just willy-nilly come and run for an office, and just because they're Black, you're going to put them in office and they're going to do some great things. And they have not had this stuff up here incubated no kind of way. And I'm not saying you need to be a Phi Beta Kappa and Rhodes Scholar and all this. If nothing else, read and watch the news, watch several of them, so that you can be aware of what's going on. And then not down your people, because we got this little stuff in our communities that we are kind of anti-intellectual, and we get upset when folks stop doing what we used to do. And so we have to we have to allow, and then allow us, those of us who are in office, let me be real sometimes. You know, let me be human because
Right.
I'm still
Right.
human, you know.
Right.
Uh-huh. Let and stop coming to see what mistakes I'm going to make. You know, that's one of the things that I would really be upset with some of the Black men who would talk about President Obama and how he didn't do enough. Well, I want to know, well, heck, how much is enough? And how much are you doing? And when if he's not doing it, if he didn't do enough, why didn't you try to get to him and show him how to help do enough?
Yeah.
And we don't support, you know, and sisters, I know us. I know us. And when I say I know us, I know us.
Hey,
We really have to embrace each other
Yes.
and lift each other. We have to straighten up each other's crowns. I have a girlfriend over in Augusta, and I told somebody, now she would be the person that would straighten out my crown.
Hold on,
but she
Miss
would
Alberta. Hold on for 1 second. I gotta call out the phone number. I don't want this whole broadcast and they gave out the phone number for nobody to call in. If anybody wants to call in and comment on this topic that we're talking about, the telephone number is 678-381-1973. That's 678-381-1973. If you can call in, if you have any comments you want to make or anything else you want to blow the whistle about. Okay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and so I say, you know, she's the kind that she would straighten out my crown, but she would look at me and say, "Damn, Alberta, how did you get this thing on your head like this?" And she would fix it. And that's what we have to do for each other, sister. How did you get this thing turned around like this?
Miss Alberta.
And help us fix our stuff. Yes.
Hey, Miss Alberta, my radio manager, he'll put you in the corner for them cuss words. There's a Christian station. He'll put you in the corner. He get all of us in the morning when we get to saying the word.
Okay. I was just making a comment about, and she's a good Christian woman, but she would have told me that's what she would say. How the heck you get this thing turned like this? But and I'm so glad to see us supporting each other and working and even if, and being connected with each other. It means so much to, you know, and those are women and men, young men too, because it means a lot to have somebody in your corner, somebody to help support you, somebody to give you an encouraging word, maybe to just send you a text message or something that just encourages you. So, you know, we have to stay encouraged, and we just have to keep on fighting. The struggle is not over.
Let me ask Tim this. I'm gonna ask Tim a question real quick. It may be just me, but it seems to me that I've been seeing a lot more women of color get involved in politics and step up and lead the path that our community needs to go in. Is that the same thing you're witnessing?
Definitely, 100%. You know, Black women make things happen. Since we came here in 1619 all the way up to today, Black women have always been the backbone of our communities. They make things happen. If you look at the civil rights movement, it didn't happen without Black women. If you look at, if you go back as far as Harriet Tubman, like Black women are everything. They always make stuff happen, for sure.
So what do we have to do to stop all this talk about the voting is a waste of time thing, and then what can we do to actually get more Black males involved? Because I was out campaigning the other day and I ran across one that actually he tried to run from. He saw what I was coming for. He saw me. He was trying to go ahead and make a move so he could get back in the house. I asked him, did he vote? He said no. He said, but I need to. But you know, you get tired of hearing that. But at least he said he needed to, and then instead of saying that, I don't play with that mess, man, like I normally hear. And I'm baffled. I mean, I'm really racking my brain trying to find out what it is that we need to do as a whole, because I can't actually educate a lot of people about the importance of politics. But there are certain things that we do need to teach our people in our community, because they don't get involved, they don't understand it. You know, most people are not gonna get involved in something. I mean, think about it. They've been going to high school when they went to high school, they studied government or history, and you see judges and politicians, you just seen a bunch of old white men. And this is what I thought when I was in school. Man, I'm tired of seeing about them, what they do for me. You know, the only thing that made me pay attention is the fact that I knew it was necessary. But
Right.
those of my peers, they lost interest just as soon as it wasn't nothing that they saw that should interest them. They didn't realize the importance of it. So what is it can we do in the community to actually just reinforce that education of government and politics and knowing the ins and outs, so they won't say all the crazy stuff that they do say to keep people from voting? What you think about that, Ms. Patsy?
Well, I think it just goes back to knowing about our history and how hard people fought for us to have the right to vote. I don't think you can take it for granted, you know, when you're seeing people being fire hosed and, you know, how the civil rights movement came about. And I think we did get comfortable after that when we're allowed to go where we want to go pretty much. But I think we just got to re-educate everybody coming up how important it is. And I like what Mayor Alberta said about getting a test and being asked how many bubbles are in a bar of soap. I mean, really? You know, we cannot take this for granted. You know, we really have to remind and retrain, like Vanjie said, we got to redo this. And you can't, you know, sit back and think it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. We have to, each generation's got to pick up its mantle.
Right.
So we have to do this.
It's a non-stop fight. You just can't take a break and say, okay, we don't want, it's over. When you know it's going to be other politicians coming along that's going to want to take back some of them rights that you just fought for. And nothing is permanent. Nothing. And I think that's the biggest thing that we get confused. A lot of people uninformed about politics think that once a law is passed that it can't get reversed, or another article can't be put in place to try to negate that law. And I mean, I guess if you really think about it, people were hung. People got lynched for trying to vote, for having the audacity to want to vote, or even talk about it. I mean, so I hate to get drastic like that with our people, but I mean, it gets to the point sometimes where you have to tell them that. And you know what they'll still say? That was back then. Ain't nobody hanging nobody now. And so it's still a hard fight. It's still a hard fight.
Yeah.
But this is the crazy, Rico. When you think about it, we have to explain to people what having a seat at the table really means for our community.
Right.
And me is like when I was running, and I know Patsy's probably going through the same thing. I'm in a predominantly 50-50 white-black area, and Black churches will allow me in. And I was so proud because I'll get up there on that pulpit and I would tell them I'm a PK.
Preacher's kid.
Two books under his pulpit, a Bible and a notebook. And he knew everybody's name in that church. And he knew if they were registered to vote. And he knew if they ride to the polls. We don't do that anymore. We don't educate our children to tell them this is how important. You know, these days, I go to my church and I'm amazed. You might see 6 children in church. Where when we were growing up, you saw, oh my God, it was church with kids. Things have changed so drastically that now we as Black parents don't even have the right to tell our Black children what they have to do without being challenged. Right. Something to change fundamentally at a level where we have to take responsibility for making sure that our children at 17 and a half have their voter registration card so they can vote in that primary and be ready by November to vote in the general election. We need to make sure to understand by having that person who doesn't look like you in office, that person who doesn't look like you often doesn't understand your struggle and understand how you need to sit at the table and what you need to eat on to make you grow stronger and bigger. Because 401 years of us not having equality and equity is way too long. We got our Black president. Now we may have our first Black woman vice president. And I'm looking at people now like, oh, I'm so excited. Are you going to vote?
Right.
Or are you going to wait for your neighbor to do it for you?
Right.
Absolutely.
Life has to change. It has
You know,
to change.
nothing was more sad and disappointing to me than the turnout of the midterms after Obama was elected. And now I'm even more disappointed because you hear people,
Mhm.
oh, well, I'm gonna hold my comment. I got a phone call coming in. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Tim Williams.
Hey, Tim, how you doing? Hello, Tim.
Okay, yeah, I was just calling that I'm joining the conversation and watching Facebook as well.
Okay, go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, my thoughts, hey, you're actually right, because what I've done, what we have done in my community here in Atlanta, Bush Mountain, we began our community organization again. And first I was not treasurer, but the secretary. And now I'm vice president. We lost our previous vice president through COVID. So, but now, like I'm vice president, and we're making a whole lot of strides. And I'm very proud to really getting to know how actually policy works, not just looking in and making assumptions.
Go ahead. Were you finished?
Yeah, did you hear me?
I didn't hear that end part.
I was just saying I'm happy that I have those head first into how to see how policy and politics does work, instead of looking from the outside in and making my assumptions. This should be that way. This is this way, and I can make a determination as to how I can make a contribution.
Right. It takes getting involved. It definitely takes getting involved. I mean, anybody can speak from the outside looking in, but getting involved, you get more familiar with what's happening. And you realize it's not just that easy. It's not as easy. It takes a lot of work, footwork, and consistency, you know, being adamant, but being dedicated. I think dedication more than anything. But
Exactly.
we're running up on right about an hour. I want to thank you, Tim, for calling in. You said you were calling from Atlanta? I guess he hung up. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Timothy, Mr. Ragland, Mal McCrory of Hobson City, Miss Gatson, Future District Attorney of Gwinnett County, and Miss Vanjie Williams of Virginia. I want to thank all y'all for tuning in, and I want to being a guest on my show. And I also want to thank everybody that tuned in and called for giving me this support and participating in the Wilson. I want to hope y'all tune in next week at the same time. Hopefully, I plan on having a show about documentary filmmakers, but it's going to be a little twist to it. So, like I said, I want to thank all of y'all for tuning in, and hopefully y'all come and check me out again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well,
Peace.
thank you, Rico, and it's so good to meet all your other people on here. Maybe we can stay in touch.
Yes.
Oh, no problem. I really hope we can. We definitely need to.
Thank you so much, Rico. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
See you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice meeting y'all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Blow the whistle. Blow the whistle.